All right, y'all. Been seeing a lot of Lost Sector talk. A lot of it recently. People out here struggling in Lost Sector world. Legend, Master, whatever. We're going to talk Lost Sectors today. We're not talking difficulty. Not too much. Mainly talking about the loot situation. Before I start, I must say, Bungie is continuing to knock Lost Sectors out of the park. It is one of the most consistently improved parts of the game. Seriously, it's been every year that they've been getting better and better, and that's awesome considering the level of interaction that they get. The Neo Muna ones are awesome. Might as well be like one-player strikes almost, with their little narrative beats in them. Team Lost Sector, again, you're killing it. You're killing it. The difficulty of Lost Sectors has technically gone up, I think, but they are not power level gated in any way. So my guess as to why people may be struggling in Lost Sectors at the moment is simply an issue of levels. This is something I'd like to explore further with some viewer gameplay analysis. Hopefully that video does well whenever I make it. But based on the limited things that I've seen, level is definitely a large factor in some people's struggles in Lost Sector world. My discussion today is not with Lost Sector difficulty. I think we've kind of drilled that enough. But the loot aspect of them. Now, obviously farming something like Master or GM Nightfalls is definitely the strat when it comes to pure volume of exotics. Even the Vex event on Neo Muna that gives an exotic is really good if you're part of a clan and, you know, maybe someone just pings clan chat whenever they pop up, if you have people hunting for them. But also, obviously, many people are not in a position to farm those things and thus need to rely on Lost Sector farming to get any amount of reliable exotics. If Lost Sectors are going to continue to be an integral part of the game when it comes to farming exotics, on top of the fact that we are drifting away from power leveling being one of the core grinds, then I think a couple of changes are gonna need to happen. Bungie did a hotfix to increase drop rates a short while ago. Master Lost Sectors now drop an exotic on average 1 in every 3 completions, Legends about 1 in 4. Now, Lost Sector durations vary depending on the ones you're running. The average time for one is going to be different from another. Something on the EDZ is probably going to go a lot faster than something like Neo Muna. I was able to do a flawless Master Bunker E15 on Europa in about 9 minutes at about minus 15 or so levels under. Thrillodrome on Neo Muna I got done in about 8. So let's say some of the newer ones like on Neo Muna, it's going to take the average person 10 to 15 minutes to do a Lost Sector. That is 10 to 15 levels below them, with it taking more time the bigger the level gap. I don't think I'd even recommend farming Lost Sectors at anything below 20 levels unless you're just a gamer. I can't really account for every single Lost Sector, but let's just say the newer, the longer it's going to take. If you're an Omega gamer clearing Legend Lost Sectors in 5 minutes or less, I'm not talking to you right now because you're good enough you can farm all the exotics you want. This means that realistically it could be between 30 and 60 minutes before a person sees any exotic. If this is going to be one of the main ways for solo players to farm exotics, then there needs to be a slightly better path to getting stuff that people actually want. If Bungie was okay with people farming Master Keitel pre-Lightfall for Artifice armor that they are probably never going to need to replace unless Bungie power creeps armor, then I would imagine Bungie should be okay with people being able to target farm exotics a bit more aggressively than just grinding on boot day and hoping for the best. If things were still like the old days where there's only a small handful of exotics per slot, then, you know, whatever. Titans have 13 gloves. So do Hunters. Warlocks have 12. If it's glove day and you're hunting specific gloves, there is a very real chance you could farm for an entire day at that 10 to 15 minute per run pace and not even see the pair of gloves that you want. Then you're also hoping for a good and high stat distribution on top of that, which just feels very unlikely. For starters, I wouldn't mind seeing some performance-based rewards when it comes to Lost Sectors. I ran a Master Flawless Lost Sector for my Guardian rank stuff, and I got a 62 roll exotic. Personally, I'm getting pretty tired of seeing low and terrible stat rolls in higher tier content, while seasonal activities consistently drop higher rolled armor than like raids or master content. I got a 56 stat roll piece of raid loot the other day. 56? Really? Come on, man. It's the raid. You want me to be toxic and say, well, at least the difficulty of the raid matches the quality of the drops? I said it. If I get a flawless, that should be an automatic boost to the amount of stats on my gear. If someone is making the effort and gets the flawless, that should be the absolute bare minimum that happens. I could deal with poorly distributed stats if I felt like I was getting, 65s or 66s and higher very consistently. When I do a flawless Master Lost Sector and I get an okay rolled 62, that does not make me feel good. In fact, if you go flawless and you kill all the champions, I don't think I'd make many enemies in saying that you should get a guaranteed exotic. Maybe for some of the shorter ones, there's some sort of internal cooldown, so people aren't getting an exotic every 3 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, something like that. However, the issue here is that because you're making it guaranteed, there are going to be a lot of people out there resetting their runs anytime they die, kind of feeling PvE Trials vibes with that, and I don't know if that's how Bungie wants people to experience Lost Sector farming. It's the same thing with like increased stats. If you guarantee increased stats on a flawless run, then you're gonna have people only chasing flawless. Not sure if that's really what Bungie wants. You could maybe make it performance-based, like fewer deaths equals better stats or something like that, but I get the feeling that Bungie wants to stay away from performance-based loot. So what else is on the docket? The stat issue is probably the lesser of the problems because most of the time getting the exotic you actually want to target farm is pretty tough to do. Not only do you need to hit the 1 in 3 or the 1 in 4 chance of it dropping, you need the 1 in 13 of the item if you want, if it's gloves or whatever you're farming, plus the 1 in 1,000 chance of getting a good roll or whatever the odds are. Now, could there be a system implemented where you simply choose the exact item you want to target farm, like Bungie just hit us with a splash screen before we zone in to be like, can I take your order? And you just hit them with the Phoenix Cradle or something like that? I don't know. I think that would be one of the more preferred options from the community. I don't really know. Something I think Bungie might be a little more open to is some sort of token-based system, sort of like a World of Warcraft type deal where the chest at the end drops a gauntlet exotic token or something, and you save them up and you collect 3 of them or whatever the cost ends up being, and you take those tokens to Xur or someone mysterious and you can cash them in for the exotic of your choice. Not very glamorous, but it would get the job done to a degree. You could do something where the more tokens you give, the higher your stat roll. So 2 tokens is like a 60 drop, 3 tokens is a 62, 4 is a 64, etc., etc. We can work on the balance of the tokens and the stat rolls. I think I'd probably cap it around 65 or so because I don't know if being able to buy like 70 stat rolls would be too much. I don't feel like it would be, but it might. I don't know. Seen a lot of requests for glass needles to come back. Glass needles being an item from Destiny 1 that allowed you to reroll everything on an exotic. The stats, the perks, everything. Now, if I were Bungie, I'd also probably want to avoid something where people can just stand in front of a vendor, endlessly rerolling their exotics. I would want people to actually play the game, even if the odds were low that you rerolled into something really good. But I do think something like glass needles could find their way back into the game to some degree. Maybe you limit it so you can only reroll so many times per week, or you can't reroll into a higher or lower amount of stats or something along those lines. Things are a little different now compared to D1. I don't know if we can go just 1 for 1 on this. I think that's everything that I have to say about Lost Sectors, at least the loot side anyway. Again, the entire basis for this is the fact that we could farm Master Dungeon armor pre-Lightfall, which is the best armor in the game outside of maybe Root of Nightmares armor, specifically in Root of Nightmares, which isn't really even needed. If Bungie allowed us to do that, then surely they can improve the Lost Sector farming experience for the average player as well. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.